This segment of the Alice Stewart Show is brought to you by Aero Plumbing. For all your household or business plumbing needs, call Aero Plumbing at 1-866-PLUMBER or schedule an appointment online at aeroplumbing.net.
Welcome back to the Alice Stewart Show, 7:34 on a stormy Monday morning. And as we have said, there is a tornado warning watch in effect for much of Arkansas until 2 o'clock this afternoon. So we'll keep an eye on that and try to avoid the roads if at all possible. Midterm elections 22 days away. All eyes on the key races. The U.S. Senate race here in Arkansas is certainly taking center stage. But the question is, many say the GOP is in good shape, but some have asked the question, will the GOP fumble at the goal line? Here to talk about that, I'm joined with Mike Warren. He is a staff writer at the Weekly Standard. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Alice. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you. And looking at the big picture, we've got a big Senate race here today and tomorrow. A lot of folks keeping an eye on this, but looking at the field from 10,000 feet, the question is asked in this article here at weeklystandard.com, will the GOP fumble at the goal line? Do you see that happening?
That's a article written by my colleague Jay Cost, who's very, very smart at looking at the election from 10,000 feet. I look at it a little more closely because I cover specific campaigns, and so I look at how Republican and Democratic candidates are doing in Arkansas and also North Carolina and Iowa and Colorado, and I think that Republicans have a good chance of fumbling at some of these games. If we're talking about sort of a bunch of different football games all around the country, I think Republicans have a good chance of sticking it out and winning in Arkansas. I think they've got a good chance of an upset in Iowa and an upset in Colorado. A place like North Carolina is a place where they could fumble at the goal line to continue this football metaphor. They've really got themselves in some trouble there. So it's maybe not as big of a wave for the Republicans as they thought they might have at the beginning of the year. But we're also talking about races like Colorado and Iowa that we weren't talking about a year ago. So it's sort of a mixed bag, I would say.
I want to ask you specifically on this Arkansas race. The top two folks, obviously Democrat Senator Mark Pryor, Republican Congressman Tom Cotton. Cotton has been in the lead in many polls lately, up now on the Real Clear Politics average by almost 5%. Senator Pryor has had a few fumbles out there talking to the press on Ebola and the administration's response to it. Those kind of things. Do you see the people, the voters, paying attention to that type of misstep on the campaign trail as an impact? Or are they looking at it from the standpoint, this is a referendum on Barack Obama?
Well, I think those two go hand in hand in a lot of ways. The issue with Ebola or ISIS or any of these other issues and kind of crises that have popped up is that they don't reflect very well on the president. They don't really reflect well on the White House, even if, it's not as if Barack Obama himself brought Ebola into the country, but it was his administration that assured us that wouldn't happen.
Right.
And, of course, that's now happened. So I think there's a sense of chaos that doesn't reflect well on the president. And I think that doesn't reflect well on Democratic candidates, particularly ones like Mark Pryor, who are incumbents, who have voted pretty regularly with the president. So I think you might see some of that discontent with what's going on translate at the polls in Arkansas. But you make a good point, and your listeners know this, that Tom Cotton has pulled ahead in the polls. I think it's something about 5 points now,
right.
Depending on what polls you're looking at and the averages. And that is a bad sign for Mark Pryor, because Mark Pryor is below 45%. He's an incumbent, and so this is not something that has happened because of his missteps on questions like Ebola or what to do about ISIS, but it certainly compounds them, and it makes it harder for Mark Pryor to say, look, I know you're upset with the way things are right now. I know you're upset with President Obama, but I'm out there fighting for you guys. It actually makes him look just more incompetent, and part of the problem.
Right. And we're seeing that in several key states. And as you know, and many are aware, Republicans need 6 seats to gain control in the U.S. Senate and transfer the balance of power. And the Obama the anchor of President Obama is weighing down a lot of candidates, and we see that also in Iowa. Republican candidate Joni Ernst, in recent debates with Democrat Bruce Braley, Obama's a key factor.
Absolutely. I mean, look, Obama's not on the ballot in this year at all. He's not running in any more elections, but he is certainly in the minds of voters. I think because again he's such a important figure, obviously, as the president of the United States, and he sort of represents the federal government and sort of what the government is putting forward. And I think that again that's problematic for a lot of these Democratic candidates. It's a little more helpful if you're not an incumbent. If you're somebody like Michelle Nunn in Georgia, who's running for that open seat against David Perdue, the Republican, Michelle Nunn can actually say, look, I'm not part of the problem in Washington. I want to fix the problem in Washington. So Democrats who aren't directly tied to the president in that way have a little bit more leeway, but that party identity is really strong. And even in places like Arkansas, where Democrats have been so strong in recent years, it is really starting to fade away. And I think 2014 it is really the time, certainly in Arkansas, that the Democrats will be more out of power than they've been in decades.
Right, absolutely. And your thoughts, if you could predict now, your thoughts on the notion that Republicans will gain those 6 seats or possibly more and gain control in the Senate?
I think they have a really good shot of gaining control. You have to add the numbers up, as you said. West Virginia is definitely going to switch to the Republican Party. I think Montana's seat is going to switch. There's some talk now about South Dakota, which was long thought to be a definite, that there's an independent there who used to be a Republican who's running. I do think that race is shaken up a little bit, but I do think the Republican still wins there. So that's 3. I think Tom Cotton's going to win in Arkansas. 4, Mark Begich is going to lose in Alaska. He's way behind Dan Sullivan there, so that's 5. Now we're getting pretty close, and the question is, does Mary Landrieu pull it out in Louisiana? I think she has a tough time. I think Joni Ernst has the momentum to win in Iowa. Cory Gardner has the momentum in Colorado, Republicans both. Now we're talking about 7 or 8. So I do think the Republicans have a good shot, and it all depends on these last couple of weeks. If something happens that shakes things out and somehow falls in Democrats' favor, I just don't see what that could possibly be.
All right. Well, be certainly keeping an eye on, and also keeping an eye on, speaking of fumbles, Georgia plays the Razorbacks this weekend, and being a Bulldog myself, I'm hoping the Bulldogs don't fumble too much. So those are the fumbles we're going to keep an eye on Saturday, and then we'll worry about the midterms in 22 days. Mike Warren, Weekly Standard staff writer. Mike, thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
All right, appreciate you. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to look at the Arkansas Congressional District 2 race and the ad war really heating up. And Jason Tolbert from Talk Business Arkansas will join us to hash that all out. This segment of the Alice Stewart Show brought to you by Arrow Plumbing. For all of your household or business plumbing needs, call Arrow Plumbing at 1-866-PLUMBER, or you can schedule an appointment online at arrowplumbing.net.